Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning. We are going to get started. I got the thumbs up, and I am all about starting on time and ending on time. So thank you for choosing this workshop. And yes, it is a workshop, as some people just noticed at the last minute. Know that you will not be breaking a sweat. Yes, you will be doing things in here and not just listening to me talk at you for 50 minutes. No one wants that, including me today, so we are going to get started. Welcome. My name is Jen Brown. I am the founder of The Engaging Educator. We're based out of New York, LA, San Francisco, and here in Winston-Salem, here in Winston, I should say, here in North Carolina. I live in Winston-Salem, and I'm used to actually doing a lot of workshops there. So what I do is I take improv-based communication and apply it to literally everything. We've been around for about 7 years. And it's funny because I got an email from Ted like months ago, Ted Copeland, and he's like, hey, I remember you from workshops in New York. Do you want to apply to do this conference? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Do people know that they're getting improv here? So by a show of hands, how many of you knew that we would be doing some kind of improv this morning? One. There are two people. So first and foremost, if you're freaked out about improv, please don't be. I don't train actors. I don't like actors. I used to be an actor, not a fan of them at all. I'm all about using improv, which is listening and responding for everyday life and everyday work. So before you get nervous and like slink out of the back room, don't worry, not what we're doing. First things first though, everyone stand up. Find a friend, someone you don't know. A new friend, I should say. So your first question, because you guys already got started, you're like, yes, I could just meet this person. Your first question to answer with your friend is, what is failure? So you're going to have 60 seconds to answer this question. It's not 60 seconds for one person. In 60 seconds, both of you have to talk about what is failure. And I'm actually going to combine the first two questions. What's failure and what's your definition of failure? Now, they're two different things sometimes, right? Sometimes failure is, everything blows up and explodes, but your personal definition of failure might be a mistake that you feel embarrassed by. So think about that. So in those 60 seconds, you both are going to answer what is failure and what's your personal definition. Take it as you will. Now, something before I let you get started, we as adults, and I'm sure you know this, make a ton of rules that don't exist. We just make them up in our heads. We're like, oh, we can't do that. Oh, we have to answer both questions. We have to go in order. We can't combine the questions. We can't talk really fast. Don't make any rules. The only rules are you have to answer those questions, the first two, skip the bottom one for now, and you'll get 60 seconds. And there's like a massive blue clock back there. So it's going to be a real 60 seconds starting now. Okay, and stop. Now, hopefully I watched some of you both look at me with a slight look of panic of, is it done yet? And then also look up here with, oh, did we do it yet? And then look back there of, oh, how much time do we actually have? So guess what? You all get A+ today because you all showed up. So stop worrying if you're doing it right, because that'll make for a very long 45 minutes that we have left if you're worried about doing things right. Now, After that conversation, keep both points in your head. What is failure and what's your personal definition of failure? Find a new person to talk to and answer that question, who cares? And be honest. Do you take your failures more personally than other people? Does your boss? Do your coworkers? Does your family? Does your psyche? Does your drink at night? Does your CBD in the morning? Does your green juice, whatever vice you may have? Like who cares about your failure? If you even have one. So that's a big question there. You're going to get about, I'm going to give you 60 seconds again. So again, find a new friend, talk about who cares. Go. If you don't find a friend, just join a group. And find a comfortable stopping place in your conversations and have a seat again. So wrap up your conversations. Sit next to your new friend. Sit somewhere else. Doesn't matter. I am really curious to hear your thoughts out of this. What came out of it? So what is failure to you? What are some personal definitions? And who cares? Yes. Not crying? Oh, not trying. I was like, both could work in this moment. So not trying, and also not crying that I put on there. So not trying. What else? I think that's something whether we knew it before we walked in, because I think that happens a lot. Like we're aware of it before we even walk into the situation, this question. We judge ourselves harder than anything else. We are our own worst critic. We are our own worst enemy. So why do we keep doing it though? Like how many of you knew that before you walked in? Like we know we're the hardest on ourselves than anyone else. So why do we keep doing it?
Like I admit.
Oh, I've never had mic people before.
Hello. Okay.
Very fancy.
Sometimes I feel like I admit my failures before someone else can tell it to me. You know, I kind of want to own it, I guess, but it's probably an insecurity issue.
Is it an owning it, or is it a self-deprecation before it actually happens?
That too. Yeah.
I think a lot of times we go in that direction. We're like, oh, I'm really bad at this, or oh, this is going to happen. I walked into a podcast interview the other day, and I'm like, I'm really bad at tech in general. Like, and sure enough, the tech went out for the first time in 3 years of them doing podcasts when I was in the room. And I'm like, did I weird manifest this walking in? But also it was like, let me apologize in advance for if anything I screw up. Sorry. And it's not doing us any favors. What else?
Something we were talking about was the imposter syndrome that you get, where you feel that somebody's going to figure out, when you screw up, somebody's going to figure out, okay, crap, now they know I don't know what I'm doing. So.
How many of you know that term, imposter syndrome? How many of you have never heard of it before? Okay, so those of you that haven't heard of it before, do you want to talk about what it is, or anyone? I know what it is. I think a lot of us know what it is.
It's the feeling that even though people do believe that you know what you're doing, but it's that feeling that you don't really have any clue, that you are faking it, that you are pulling one over on people, that you're fooling people into believing that you know what you're talking about, that you actually know how to do your job.
Essentially, you'll be discovered as being a fraud.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I shouldn't be here. And there was a lot of belief for a while. Thank you for that. There was a lot of belief for a while that it was a woman thing. And it's actually shown that it's a population thing. Like, women, I think we experience it differently than guys do. But 70% of the population actually experiences imposter syndrome in one way or another. And there's 5 different kinds of imposter syndrome. Like, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, if you're curious to diagnose yourself, like, definitely just look up 5 kinds of imposter syndrome, and you'll see these different, like the perfectionist, everything has to be perfect, the teacher, and do a little digging. Don't do enough that you start taking on the traits. Don't do that. That happens, though, with failure. We think that, oh, we're wrong, we're going to be discovered. What else?
I think we're our own worst critic because we have to spend the most time with ourselves out of anyone. And I think the longer you spend with anyone, the more, you try to like pick people apart and, you know people really well, you have really close friends. But then at the end of the day, you spend the longest amount of time just with yourself, with your thoughts. And it's really easy to go over and over with those thoughts and realize what you did wrong, or and then you don't have the friendly side all the time to pull yourself out of that. So
I think there's a lot of truth in what you just said, in that sense of we hang around with ourselves and our own thoughts way too often, and we kind of marinate in them, much like a steak for dinner. We like sit in all these thoughts, and it gets us a little softer as we go along. I think it's something that we see these thoughts and see these failures and see these parts of us that we don't necessarily like, and we frame them in these negative ways as opposed to embracing them and being like, you know what, this is part of me, this is who I am, this is the thing I deal with, I'm going to move forward from it. So the question I want to pose to everyone before we move on, in the sense of who cares, how do these feelings of failure that you talked about, that you might be thinking about, that maybe you thought were a little too vulnerable to share in this moment, how do they affect our work? Like, not how do they affect our self-esteem, which also affects our work, how do they affect our dating, our families, how do they affect our professional advancement? They limit us. Why? So we all know this. We all know that, it holds us back. We don't take risks. If we don't take risks, we don't move forward. Yet here I am, still in business, which is after 7 years, one of those things that I'm kind of like, whew. And at the same time, we're still holding ourselves back, no matter how many thought pieces get written, no matter how many TED Talks we watch. We don't learn how to make failure okay. We sit in our heads and like logically we're like, oh yeah, we got to fail forward. We got to do all this great stuff and move forward and not let it hold us back. Yet we don't move forward with it. Why? Who said that? I like that. Can you say it again? We're failing at failing. And I agree. There's a lot of growth that can come from failure, and that's one of the reasons why I teach improv wherever I possibly can, because improv starts to chip away at those feelings around failure, that like, making yourself smaller, pulling your arms in, and that internal kind of wet sweater feeling that you get when you make a mistake. It chips away at some of that. Yes, it's funny, it's silly, it's goofy. Some of the activities we're going to do, you're going to leave and go, whew, that was weird. Think about how it applies to this and also the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Making yourself look a little silly in front of people you may or may not know very well, and me, who you will possibly never see again. Think about how that feels. So now we're going to move on, though, because we're going to start failing a bit. Please, everyone, stand up and circle up. It's okay if you stand in front of the camera. I don't mind. Sorry, folks at home. So try to make the best circle we can. It'll be very weird looking, and it's okay. And I don't bite. Yes, one big circle right now. Come on over here. Fill in, fill in, fill in. Has anyone done improv before? Some few bits, pieces. I'm so sorry. If you didn't hear me said I was dragged on stage at an improv comedy sports. I performed off-Broadway for 10 years in New York at a comedy sports derivative, and I hated pulling people on stage because I'm like, they don't like me right now, and it's okay. They don't like me. And with actors, like the biggest thing is like you're trying to get affirmation from people you don't know. So having someone not like you for that moment is very awkward. So everyone, real quick, because we talked about failure, some of your body language is really giving me that feeling of like, ooh. So stand with your feet underneath your knees, underneath your hips, underneath your shoulders. Make sure your knees are bent. This is a big thing with me. Unclench your butt. And yes, you heard me correctly. Like everyone clench your butt and say hello. Okay, now unclench your butt and say hello. Okay, legit, your voice falls in. What happens is we carry tension in different places depending on who you are, and you get the energy you put out. So if you're putting out tension, if you're putting out awkwardness, if you're putting out this like, oh, I'm really nervous feeling, everyone that talks to you is going to be like, oh, I feel really nervous and I don't know why. And so that is one of the places I find that so many people carry tension aside from shoulders and neck. We know that if we work at a computer, but down here, like people are so tense in their butt area and it makes your voice ride on up. So if you start feeling tense, like make sure you're like loose down here because that also makes you feel really grounded. Ladies, we tend to do this a lot. I saw a bunch of you doing that. So if you can't see me, it's this cross leg in front, really making yourself small. Guys, you take up a lot of space when you're tense. So you kind of have the opposite reaction. That's why I have stand with your feet underneath your knees, underneath your hips, underneath your shoulders. Your body language is so important when you're communicating and tells us so much in the beginning. So that's why if you find yourself during any of these activities getting small, just open back up to this. So everyone lift up one hand, and on the count of 3, you're going to point to someone, anyone at all. Clearly, they will not be pointing at you. And we're going to say the word zip. Z-I-P on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Zip. Awesome. Hands up. You're going to point to someone else. Say the word zap on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Zap. Awesome. Hand up. You're going to point to someone else and say the word zop on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Zop. Awesome. Hands down. I'm going to point to one of you and say zip. That person's going to point to anyone else, say zap. That person's going to point to anyone else, say zop. And then it repeats, always in that order. Always zip, zap, zop. When we make a mistake, we'll deal with it. So those of you that are like, too early, haven't had coffee, it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad you closed the door a little. Now no one can leave. So we're all in this. So again, zip, zap, zop. Don't get tense. Unclench your butt. Relax. Here we go. Zip. Good. We've been so close to mistakes. Like so many of you have been like 2 people are lifting their hands. I'm like, say it. Both of you say it. And you're not because you're letting the other person take the lead. And that's okay. Because for starters, this was so boring, like not a good thing. We're going to make it go faster and we're going to try to make some mistakes. So thank you for making one. Yay! Because that's what we're going to do when someone makes a mistake. And don't worry if you're thinking, oh, this room is big. I can hide for a while because it's about to get real crazy real fast. So when someone makes a mistake, when anyone makes it, we all make it. So everyone puts their hands on their hips. Everyone put your hands on your hips. And we all together go, ah-ooga. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ah-ooga. Great. And the reason we do that is how silly you may feel right now or weird or goofy or off-put. Because the thing that happens, like, again, we know, we've watched the TED Talks, we've seen the thought pieces, fail forward. We don't actually practice making mistakes and screwing up. We say we do, and we're like, oh yeah, I'm risking it all right now. And we're not, because we don't want to look silly. So in improv, this little practice, this little auga and hip thrust weirdness gets you a little more comfortable with making a mistake, getting a little silly. So again, we're going to go super fast as we can in this big group, and then it's going to get crazy because I'm making smaller groups. But let's just try it with mistakes. So if you think the person next to you is getting it, like the zip, and both of you raise your hand, that's now going to be a mistake. If you hesitate, that's a mistake. If you point to yourself as opposed to someone else, that's a mistake. If anything, brain meltdown, mistake. Again, unclench your butt. I'm watching some of you like go like this. I do public speaking coaching, and I can feel and see in your bodies. So know that I'm actually watching a few people over here go like this. Big breath, everyone. And what's your name, my favorite person that made the first mistake? Kim, you get to start us off with zip. So point to anyone. I'm going to start calling these. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Auga. That was cute. You can take this one. There was an almost over there. Start us off. 1, 2, 3. Auga. Great. Y'all are smart, so we're going to make it go faster. What I'm going to do is make smaller groups. I want you to go faster in your smaller group. It's going to be chaos in here. You have to really pay attention to what's going on. Go as fast as you possibly can. So from here to here, you're one group, circle up. From here to here, you're another group, circle up. From here to here, circle up. From here to here, circle up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, circle up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, circle up. We'll go this way, circle up. You can go either way. Circle up here, circle up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, circle up, and 4, circle up. Start whenever you're ready. Go fast. Now give yourselves a round of applause wherever you're at. All right, you guys can have a seat again. Everyone have a seat. Sorry. While you're working your way back to your seat, think about how that felt, both in the big group and the smaller group. Think about what felt fun, what felt nerve-wracking, what was easy, what was hard. And before I ask you how you felt and ask you to reflect on it, I just want to thank you for doing the first part of this, because you said yes. Part of improv, it's one of the phrases that you hear all the time is the yes and. And if you've watched any SNL, you might have heard it. If you've read anything about improv, if you've seen Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please. And a lot of people confuse yes and with being a doormat, of agreeing with everyone, of saying, oh, absolutely, I'll do this. Oh, this sounds great, amazing. Yes is none of those things in improv. Yes is affirming the reality of the situation. Yes is saying, yes, this is happening right now. Yes, this is reality. Yes, you just made us stand in circles, say funny words, and hip thrust when we made a mistake. So thank you for saying yes to the situation. And that's the first part of embracing failure, is acknowledging it. So how was that for anyone? Good, bad, ugly? Fun. Why was it easier in smaller groups than the big groups? Failing small versus failing large. So less people, less judgment. Failing became fun. And that's something that I swear if we do more of, if we start embracing that, yes, a fail that costs millions upon millions of dollars will never be fun. But realistically, how often are we faced with those failures? They're usually not that. Or life or death. It's usually not missing someone's organ by mistake because you made a mistake. What else? How else was it? Thrilling. I like that. What was thrilling about it? Interesting. Interesting. I'm actually, so it's funny because I've been teaching for a long time. Like, it was just me when I started my business in New York. And the reason it's the engaging educator is because I was working with academics and museum educators. I have a degree in art history. I decided when I stopped being an actor, I was like, screw it. I'm going back to something that is completely unactor-y. I'm going to go work in museums. And if you don't know, academics aren't very good at being flexible or pivoting. Not good at all. And no one in years, in the 7 years from then, 2012, October 24th actually, so I'm almost 7 years perfectly, till now, has ever given me that response. And that's not because it's like you're making everyone do this thing. Why is that bad? That's my question to you. Like, why is it a negative? It might be a negative in some of your heads. Like, I don't want to make everyone make a funny noise and hip thrust. And if that is, there's nothing wrong with that. Why is it bad, though? Did you have that fear, too?
Hello. No, not necessarily, but I understand it. And I don't want to put words in his mouth because maybe that's not what he's trying to say. But I think there is a fear of creating pain for somebody else. If you fail, if you screw up and it causes a problem for other people on your team especially, nobody really wants to do that. And so you may hold back and may not do things, may not say things or whatever out of that fear.
I hear that. And it's interesting because I can't tell you how many dollars. I can tell you if I looked it up recently. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars that get spent every single year on team building and trust falls and ropes courses. And clearly they don't work. But some of them work for certain reasons. But in that sense, isn't that what we're supposed to be working towards? Of like, hey, we're supporting one another. So if you make a mistake, it's okay because I'm here to support you.
My mic doesn't. Whoa. Yeah. So I want to point out that nobody defined what success was, but we all had in our mind what success was, and that was how many times can we do this without messing up, right? Without having to do the auga. And then the auga became fun, and we said, let's see how many times we can do that. No.
And that's interesting. Like, if that's success, getting away with not making a mistake, and how any of you made it did anyone make it with no augas? Maybe? No? If you tried, I bet you could. What are some things that you would have to sacrifice? Speed, fun. So think about with work. What do you have to sacrifice to make zero mistakes? Efficiency, speed, creativity. Sometimes success. Because on that same tone, if that's how you define success, by not making a mistake. I don't know if any of you define success as never making a mistake. And if you do, I'm impressed. That's hard. What's your success rate of your success? It's more rhetorical for everyone than anything else. Any other thoughts on Zip Zap Zop or this idea of failure and success? I think you brought up a really good point, and I don't think we do it enough is to clearly define success and to very clearly define success. Not like, oh, it's getting this done. It's getting this done in this amount of time, and done doesn't mean perfect. Done means ready to try it and see if it fails and reflect. And at the end of this, you'll see there's a slide. I hate slides. I just make them because people don't take me seriously if I don't have slides sometimes. So I legit hate slides. So you'll see at the end that I wish that I'm like, oh, slides. There's one called Glows and Grows. And I think that's something that applies. I'll even advance to that. Aha, there it is. Glows and Grows. So in that sense, you have to think what went well and what didn't. So when you're defining your success and you're going for it and you're launching and you're looking at it and it's not successful, something out of it probably was. Even if that thing is to eliminate that option. That's success. One less worry, one less option, one less thing to try next time. So thinking about it in the sense of glows and grows versus successes and failures, like what went well and then what do we need to improve on? Sometimes changes your thought process behind like failure, because that F word is so scary for some people. We're like programmed from school on to be like, oh, failure, can't do that. And even if you leave here going like, we're going to start celebrating failure, you're going to run into people and they're going to be like, oh no, I can't celebrate failure. But they can celebrate growth. They can celebrate areas of improvement and any other thesaurus-y type terms you can pull out around failure. So it might be changing the word. Now, like I said, we're going to be failing more. And this next one may very well be a lot of failure, and I'm really excited for that. I need 2 very bold volunteers to show this next activity, and then everyone's going to do it. So none of you are off the hook. You just may be off the hook from doing it in front of everyone. Who's brave? Yay, 1. My one answer that I've never gotten in my whole career. I'm going to ask my teachers. And 2, awesome, that's 2. Give them a round of applause. Come on up here. Legit, I've never, I'm going to remember. No, don't shrug. This is a good thing. I think for me, it's always success when I'm surprised in workshops. So yes. What's your name? Nick? And? Charity. Awesome. So Charity, you're going to start. You're literally going to do anything at all. So do anything. Fantastic. Keep doing it. She's good. Nick, you're going to ask, what are you doing? Charity's going to respond with anything but what she's actually doing. So maybe she could say making a sandwich. Maybe she'll say planking. Anything that she wants Nick to do, essentially. So respond with anything. So Nick starts writing his thesis. Fantastic. And Nick, you keep writing your thesis. Charity, you ask. What are you doing? And Nick responds with anything but what he's actually doing.
I'm slicing a pizza.
Good work. And now try to go faster. Keep asking back and forth.
What are you doing?
Oh. No, that's good. So we're learning. I'm glad you did that. That's one of the things that happens in this activity. Because we think, oh, there's silence. Oh, I need to speak up. I need to do something in this silence. And you don't. It's okay. Wait to the other person. And Nick could wait forever. And Charity would still be slicing that pizza, and that thesis is written. And eventually the right thing happens, or the thing that moves it forward. So, Nick?
Charity, what are you doing?
Feeding ducks.
Yep. So they're good. Now I'm going to make it a little harder, and now this is all of your job after they demonstrate it for a little bit. What is your favorite letter of the alphabet? V. Oh, man. What's your favorite letter of the alphabet? E. Their fault, not mine. Everything you're doing first has to start with a V word, and then shortly after an E word. So it might be very carefully elevating elephants. So you start. Keep doing whatever, feeding your ducks.
What are you doing?
Ventilating Elevators.
Yep. So you start doing that, whatever that looks like. And you can talk, you can.
What are you doing?
I'm variegating my extravagant egg salad sandwich.
Fantastic. Yep. That was. So let's give them a round of applause. Have a seat, both of you. And before you all split up and do it yourself, we're going to give you new letters. Don't worry, but thank you. You're like, ugh. A lot of you probably had a ton of these and a ton of E's. It's because you were on the sidelines. You were watching, you weren't stuck in the moment. So when you get up here and you're not up here literally, but up wherever you are and you're doing it, don't get down on yourself for having 0 things in your head. Because you know as well as I do, when it comes to crunch time, when it comes to being in the moment, when it comes to being on the spot, something happens and things short circuit sometimes and everything goes out of your head. So use this as a moment of what to do for practicing those moments in real life where you do short circuit. So think about it. Take a breath. Start mouthing out the words maybe. Take some time. Keep being active. Laugh. Whatever you need to get out of your head, because that's what happens a lot of times when we get stuck. We get stuck in our heads and we can't proceed. So use this as practice for it. Use it for practice of being on the spot. Use it for practice of falling flat on your face and looking ridiculous in front of one other person. I'm shortening the amount of people you fail in front of, so it's just one other person. And have fun. Because that's one of the things, like we take ourselves way too seriously sometimes, and we know this, and we don't let fun come into our work. When doing something like this that's weird and off the cuff can loosen things that get locked up in your head when it comes to creativity. So let's get some letters. Now that you know the game, what's your favorite letter?
I was going to say Z.
No.
I'll say S.
Okay, S. They will all jump you shortly. And? T. Awesome. So find a partner. Your letters are S, T. You're doing one thing. You're saying another. Go forth. And if you need a partner, just make a group of 3. Start whenever you're ready. Go for it.
So do we put the S and the T in the activity we're doing?
So it could
One or
be
the other?
both of them. S and T. Yes.
All right.
So sleeping with tigers, slipping on tulips.
All right, we'll talk about it later.
Everyone, wherever you are, pause for one quick moment. Pause. If you are taking this too seriously, stop. Stop taking this too seriously. Remember in the beginning, what is failure? What is failure for this? I honestly think failure for this is saying, I can't do this. Failure for this is walking out and being like, peace out, I'm done. Failure is not struggling. This is not something you do every day. You're not going to be good at it. It's okay. And if you are good at it, here comes the and part of yes and for this. Make it harder for yourself. Make it difficult. Don't sit in this status quo, even if it seems to be like, oh, it's a high status quo. It's still status quo for you. So if it's easy for you, if you're like rolling out the S's and the T's and you're rocking through this and being funny and all of that, add some vocalization. So if you're sleeping with tigers, what might that sound like? right? You might be snoring. You might be like, oh, my arm, like something, whatever. Nothing is wrong. So level it up for yourself, because that happens sometimes, right? We stop failing, we hit a level of success, and then we're like, cool, it's great. And you have to push yourself to continue, like push towards that failure, because that's like right next to failure is immense success. So now make it harder. Keep going. S&T. Rock it out. And wherever you're at, give yourselves a round of applause. And have a seat. Have a seat again. Not yet. While you're all working your way, and I'm happy to see happy faces and buzzing as opposed to like death stares, which is good. How was that? Aside from fun and or weird, how was it? Hard. What was hard about it? S's. We'll go here. 1, 2, 3.
When I was up there, I couldn't think of a single food that started with T, and the second I sat down, like I thought of 3 of them.
Yep. Because when we're on the spot, that's the thing that happens, right? When we're on the spot, our brains are like, whoop. That's why we might need to practice. That's why we might need to rehearse before we speak. That's why we have to practice being on the spot. That's one of my biggest like sells for people taking improv classes in general. If you find yourself blanking out in those moments and having those, wow, I wish I would have thought of that, you probably could benefit from some improv, because that's the skill that gets taught with improv. It's like you're on the spot, you have to think and respond in the moment. And it's something we're not taught, and we should be. You were going to say.
Yeah, every time I forgot the S&T part.
So for the, yeah, I'll let you repeat what you.
Every time I forgot the S&T thing, I would just say a random activity, and then Lauren would be like, "Oh wait."
And that happens. I bet other people did that too. Like you've completely forgot the S&T, or you inverted the 2 letters, or you just said something, and your brain you don't even know why your brain does that sometimes. You're like, what are you doing, brain? You're failing me right now. And I'm glad that you just laughed, it sounded like, because that's the kind of culture around making mistakes that we should take back to work. Not the culture that's like, ugh, like how come she didn't know that? What else? There's someone over here that had a hand up. Yeah. I'll wait till you get the microphone over. You're working so hard. I'm going to thank you.
I was just trying to find funny combinations, mostly because it's kind of like what you want to have, like in any group, is a little bit less tension, a little bit more humor, a little bit more fun.
And that can be your goal with something like this. Like if you take this activity back and you're like, you know what, I want to give my partner something fun or funny or good. That adds a level of stress onto you, though, I will say, if you spend a lot of time worrying about it being funny or fun, because the thing is, a lot of improv is also about trust, and a lot of failure is also about trust. Like, I trust you to make this funny. I'm just going to give it to you. And then hopefully they'll give me something back that'll also make it funny. Because if you're trying to make something, usually it doesn't end up that something. If you're trusting that person to just be real with it and just take it and run with it, that's when you get magic, I think. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. You'll be next.
Not necessarily the better we got, but the better it got. Like, we were still just as struggling to do the right letters and words, but we got more into it and became more loose.
Can you say the beginning part again? Just the more
we let go. And like, after you said that, like the first time you stopped us and said, hey, if you're getting this, ramp it up.
Mm-hmm.
The more we ramped it up, the better it got.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the results were still kind of not exact.
Exactly, because like I said in the beginning, improv is literally listening and responding to the world around you. That's all it is. And when you let it, like you put it, so when you let it go, when you just be in the moment, like you hear that, be present, be in the moment, be mindful. When you actually do that and stop worrying about 100 things back here, it gets better. Yes.
Somebody and take down that first awkward initial contact, and I've just made you more comfortable with them.
Mm-hmm. It's being comfortable around people. I mean, that's why I joke that like team building is super important, because if you are awkward around a person, if you are uncomfortable around another person, you're not going to be able to let it go and just go for it. You're going to be worried about failing. You're not going to trust them. You're going to be worried about how they're judging you, how you're judging them, what's going on in the back of your head. And you need to get to know people once in a while. And at that vulnerability, that drop, that helps so much. Any lasting, if one, cool. So I am almost out of time. I just want you to think in your own heads, in your own internal thoughts. You don't have to talk to anyone anymore. Just think in your head, what worked today? Like, what are you going to take with you back to your house, back to your work, back to your life? And what's something that you're like, maybe not for me, maybe for other people, maybe not for me. And that's something that I've learned before I give you like a moment of silence. Long ago, I learned from a friend, actually. She had a Post-it on her desk, and it said, I am not pizza, not everyone will like me. And that's one of the things, like, I think we have to look at everything with, like, not everything is going to ever work for everyone. So it's picking and choosing the things that really make it sing for you and discarding the things that don't. So now take a moment. I'm going to give you a real quiet 30 seconds. And that was an actual 30 seconds now. I know there was a little pass out time and things. If you felt uncomfortable in 30 seconds of silence or 30 seconds with yourself, try building that into everything you're doing when you launch something. Like having that reflective practice, I think, is something that we skip a lot of the times because we just want to launch again and try again or go for it again. We get to a point where we're ready to hit it, and we hit it and stuff doesn't work, and we're like, okay, here's B, C, D, double X, double Y, like going through all of these different iterations, when sometimes we just need that moment to step back and be quiet and just sit with our thoughts. Silences can be super uncomfortable. They can also be incredibly confidence boosting if you take them for yourself as opposed to having someone push it on you. So that being said, if you're curious, people are always curious how awooga is spelled. Legit, that's how it's spelled. I want to say thank you, everyone, for playing this morning. Thank you for being part of it. If you ever want to get in touch with me, here are multiple ways to get in touch with me. I always, my publicist would kill me if I didn't. I have a book coming out November 8th called Think on Your Feet, and it's all about how to use improv in your job with interpersonal communication skills. It's through McGraw-Hill, so I bet you could get it reimbursed from your company, right? And if you ever want to like shoot me an email, you can get in touch with me any of these ways. So I want to say thank you guys. Everyone stand up and let's awooga and get out of here. Okay, like loud, proud, loudest awooga you can. Hands in your hips on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awooga. Thank y'all.